And we're going to find out if Daniel Jones is too good. And for me, when I talk about these two teams and this unbelievable anticipation for both of these teams, right? And we see Hard Knocks, and I talked about this that night after Hard Knocks, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and I talked about how I've been one of these people who, different than Sean, different than Joe Beningo, I don't believe there's much of a rivalry between these two teams. Never have. I'm a Giants fan. Jets have never cost me an ounce of sweat, an ounce of pain. They play once every 4 years. It's football. Football Sunday. I watch both teams because they're local, especially now at the job I have, clearly. We watch both teams. I want them to be good. I truly do. I want the Jets to be good. I want interesting football. I have nothing against the Jets. And then I watched Hard Knocks, and they got to me. So somewhere deep down, I suppose I was wrong, because it is inert inside me when I see another quarterback, whether I think he's going to be a chance to win the MVP and take a team to the Super Bowl that hasn't been there since 1969, whatever I may think of him, and thrilled that he's here and can't wait to watch him play every week. Whatever I think of him, when he sits on the sidelines of a preseason game against the Giants and calls it Jet Life Stadium, it rubbed me the wrong way. And it got me going. And I don't know if there's a legitimate rivalry between these two. I know all the injuries in spring training. I know all the injuries in preseason. I know there's been a bunch of them. I remember even Eli getting bloodied and everything, and Mark Sanchez and all the different injuries and stuff that's happened, weird stuff that's happened in the Giant preseason game. And there are memorable Giant Jet games during the regular season. Obviously, Victor Cruz is the one we all talk about and remember the most. And where really it's a line of demarcation where one team went to the Super Bowl and one team went to one of their more disappointing seasons following 2 trips to the AFC Championship game. So I understand that game right there can be kind of a line of demarcation. So it's significant. But ultimately, I've never felt like there was juice between these two teams or fan bases. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. We'll find out now, because we've never had both teams heading into a season as hot as both of these two teams are. And I don't believe the idea that the Giants are just quietly going about business. I don't care their over-under number is 7.5. I don't care that maybe in some circles they're a little bit overlooked. And maybe some guys around the league are considering last year a little bit of a pop-up, poor schedule, a couple of lucky wins where they're down double digits in the fourth quarter and things worked out for them. And now nobody's going to catch them sleeping. You're not going to catch anyone sleeping. People are aware of the Giants. It's a tougher schedule, certainly to start the year. And so that maybe there's some thought of regression with the Giants. But ultimately, I think the Giants have been not nearly the Jets. Don't get me wrong. The Jets are the story in football. I totally agree. And rightfully so. I think they are one of the handful of teams that can honestly call themselves Super Bowl contenders. I honestly feel that way. And I don't feel that way about the Giants necessarily. Things can change rapidly, and the NFC is down, and there's only a handful of teams they'll need to beat. Totally agree, but still. I don't view them in the same light. But that doesn't mean I still saw, Good Morning Football, Peter Schrager, when asked, sleeper Super Bowl team, New York Giants. I know he's a little New York biased maybe, but still, New York Giants, where Daniel Jones lands in the quarterback pantheon of the NFL has been as much a talking point on any of these ESPN or Fox Sports News or Carton in the Morning or whatever. Any of those discussion shows always have, will Daniel Jones be a top 10 quarterback? Will Daniel Jones be a top 5 quarterback? Hell, we do it constantly. I don't think the Giants are going under the radar. That, in comparison to the Jets, sure. Is there a little bit of a shadow they're living underneath at the moment because of Hard Knocks, because of Aaron Rodgers? Yeah. I don't know how much it'll happen once the season starts. I know they're playing a bunch of primetime games. And listen, if the Jets don't get off to the same start or the kind of start people think, then it might change completely. But yeah, right now they're a little bit under the Jets' shadow. But I don't think they're necessarily working under the radar and no one's thinking about that. When the Detroit Lions are considered like a sexy pick in the NFC. I don't care how talented they may be. I don't care how good the offense was. I don't care how they finished the season. When the Detroit Lions are considered a sexy, trendy pick inside the NFC, it's a weak NFC. So anything's possible for the New York Giants. But here's the thing for me when it comes to expectations and looking at these two teams. For me, I look at the Jets and I know what all the pieces of the puzzle are. I know Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. I know Sauce Gardner is one of, if not the best young cornerback in football. I know that Quinnen Williams is one of the best D tackles in the league. I know they had a defensive backfield and a cornerback combination that was as good as any in the NFL last year. I know Garrett Wilson is one of the young, up-and-coming best wide receivers in football. I know Aaron Rodgers and this coach, this offensive coach in Hackett, have put together an offense that has won him MVPs and got teams and got teams to division titles and winning records year in and year out. I know all that. The hype is believing it can all come together and the few weaknesses won't drag them down. That's really the hope, is things come together. That Aaron Rodgers doesn't get hurt, that Aaron Rodgers isn't at the end of his career. Like, it's a little bit of that, but I mean, mainly it's just, can this group that we all know is super talented get off to a good enough start in a tough division, in a tough conference against all the best quarterbacks in the league practically, save a few? Like, are they good enough to come together as a group and be as good as they are on paper? I have no problem buying into that. Right? First of all, expectations don't bother me none. Never have. I have no problem getting hyped up and, I don't worry about things. I have no problem getting hyped up for what's going to be a great year, the best year ever. It doesn't cost me anything. I hate Jet fans who will talk about, I don't want to do that. We're still the Jets, longest playoff drought in the league, in professional sports. I don't want to get too hyped up. I don't want to believe this. I got to see it first. I don't want to do that. Why? It doesn't cost you a damn thing, and I promise you it won't make you feel any better when the season ends. Like, I love this. Like, what do you think it's going to do for you? Whether you're a Jet fan who thinks, hey, they're good enough to get into the postseason, that's it for me. I'm not going to call the season a failure if they make the postseason. Good enough for me. Hopefully they do better than that. I have higher hopes necessarily, but that's my bar. Get into the postseason, I won't call it a failure. Or you're the kind of Jet fan who thinks they need to be playing in the AFC Championship game. They need to be playing in the Super Bowl. That's why you got Aaron Rodgers. Either one of those guys, if they lose in the first round of the playoffs, I promise you both are going to be the same pissed off. Like, that's just, you can't fool yourself and talk yourself into being less disappointed. It's a fool's errand. I've always felt that way. Both guys will either come to the middle at some point and go, hey, it was a pretty good season. We won a division. We made a playoffs. Or we made the playoffs. Finally, we broke it. We lost a tough game. And you'll end up in the same spot anyway. So you might as well buy into the hype. So I'm full board on both teams' hype. But what I'll say about the Giants' hype is I think it's so reliant on one player. Because I know the team is good. I love the coach. I love the defensive coordinator. I love the GM. I feel like the team is in the best hands as far as an organization goes as it's been in hell since even Tom Coughlin, we were concerned about Reese. And never, what was the story even then? Like, they won a couple Super Bowls, don't get me wrong, but it was, they never re-signed a draft pick. Reese, besides that rookie class of 2007, what is Reese drafted? There was still issues a little bit about it, and the defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators were in flux a little bit. Right now, I feel like this is as stable a team as we've seen. So I'm all in on the organization. I'm all in on the idea of year two being better than year one, in whatever shape that takes form. Does it take form in 2 playoff wins? Does it take form in a division title? Or does it just take form in the same amount of wins against a tougher schedule, but overall feeling better? Like, I'm not sure yet on where that's going to land, where that Plinko ball is going to fall. Rest in peace, Bob Barker, love you. But I feel confident in that. But the hype, I'm a little concerned to buy in, because it's easier for me to buy into the hype of a bunch of players I know coming together, which is the Jet situation, as opposed to the hype of one player making the jump necessary to be the team I really have high hopes for. And that's the case with the Giants. Daniel Jones needs to make this jump. And it's hard for me to go, like, if you admit that, which I think most Giant fans would admit that still means there needs to be a jump to a place we haven't seen. Like, if your point is he's there, he just needs to be as good as last year, I don't think that's really the cry of the Giant fan. But he needs to get better. He needs to put up more numbers. I've seen Daniel Jones. I know his talent. I know his tools. I love his talent. I love his tools. He's got one hell of a tool belt. But all of that has just flat out not come together enough into offense putting points on the board. And I'm not even talking about passing touchdowns. Oh, you look at his passing touchdowns. You don't look at his rushing touchdowns. I look at touchdowns. I look at points scored. I look at ability and touchdown percentage inside the red zone. I look at the flat out scoring points, winning games that way. Because that's how you win games in the NFL. You can win it defensively, fine. And last year they won a couple games defensively with plays. I mean, let's be honest, the Texans were going down the field to beat them if it wasn't for a couple of turnovers. The offense did nothing against the Bears, nothing against Carolina. They don't probably beat Carolina in the home open if it's not for a couple of turnovers off kickoffs and right in the Giants' end zone practically. Like, I still need to see more of this offense, and I have faith it's in there. I trust the tools and the coach to make it happen, but I still need to see it happen. I still need to see that jump. Because quite honestly, we talk about all the different tools he has and the ability. Let's be honest. It's the same as last year, save Waller. If Waller goes down, which he's been in a habit to do the last handful of years, how different is this team? Campbell? Hyatt? Okay. Hodgins is still here. Hyatt, he can get down the field, no doubt. Third draft. Third draft pick, have a lot of confidence in him, feel great about him. But if Waller's not there, that's kind of what you want him to blow the top off the defense and set up some of the intermittent stuff. Healthy Wan'Dale Robinson, no doubt. Anything's better than Kenny Golladay. That's a fair argument. But the real game changer in this offense, Barkley was there last year. The real game changer in this offense is Waller to come in here and be a top level pass catching tight end. And as long as that's there, and as long as the coach is there, I have faith. I do. And I'm buying in. I told you, I buy into it because it doesn't cost me anything, and I'd rather be that kind of guy. Because last year I wasn't. Last year I didn't care they hired a new coach. I thought he had a good chance to be the coach, a good coach. He was the guy I wanted hired. I wanted Buffalo South. I was screaming it every time I had an opportunity to do a show. But I also didn't really think that was going to turn it around in 1 year. I thought last year was going to be a horror show. I thought last year was another 4 or 5 year win season in year one of a rebuild, and we were going to have a new quarterback because Daniel Jones wasn't going to do it enough to warranty a contract, and that's where I was, and it didn't cost me anything. It made me miserable. Why be miserable? And then everybody called me wrong again. I hate being called wrong. So from now on, I'd rather be called wrong and have a good time rooting for my fans and rooting for my team. Excuse me. So I'm all in on the hype for both teams, including the Giants. But I will just caveat with for me, it's a little easier to get behind a group coming together than the key player of the offense making that next jump. I want to see it. I believe I can see it. But I'm just not at the point where so many Giant fans are and so many different people are where it's going to happen. I hope so. I sure hope so.